Well, thank you guys for having me this morning. I'm excited about being here. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. I want to thank the group travel family for inviting me through my speaking agency, That a Girl and Friends. I get an opportunity to travel all over the country, and I was telling Greg and Mac, my favorite part of this is actually meeting people. It is just amazing to see the stories of the people that I get an opportunity to touch and just get to know just a little bit around the country. So today I wanted to come, and they asked me to come with an inspirational message. And so I wanted to talk about limitless people living limitless lives. And so as I began looking at this topic, I began thinking about some people that I've had the privilege to come across. Let me see if I can get this working this morning. And so I began looking at someone, and Thomas Edison really popped in my mind when I read his quote that said, "If we did the things that we're capable of, we would astound ourselves." And I began to think about that. If we did the things that we're capable of, if we just stop putting limitations on ourselves and begin thinking outside of the box, we would astound ourselves. I think we'd astound the world. And because when I looked at Thomas Edison, I began looking at his personality. He believed in creative thinking, outside of the box. Staying in the box wasn't good enough for him. Doing it the normal way, like everyone else does it, wasn't enough. He wanted to not only live in this world, but he wanted to change the world. He wanted to not just exist, but he wanted to have an impact on the world in which he lived in. That's kind of how I feel, and I'll share a little bit of my story as I go through this. I have about 30 minutes today, and I apologize I won't get to stay and get to know some of you. I would love to meet you and hear your stories, but unfortunately I have a flight right after this and headed to another city. But maybe I'll get to come back again. But he wanted to have an impact. I want to have an impact. Don't you want to have an impact when it's all said and done? That it wasn't just the norm, but you had an impact. No matter whether you do travel, whether you're a pastor, whether you serve within the church, but to have an impact. And I think we live in a world today where we really need to have an impact. We need to stay relevant in what we do and who we are. There was a survey done by a couple of universities, and they surveyed thousands of people that were 75 years and older. And they asked them the question, if you could do it all over again, what would you do different? The number one answer that every one of them gave at some point, and it ranked within the top 5, but for most of them it was number 1. You know what it was? I would have tried more things. I would have not just stayed in the box. I would have stepped out of the box and tried some new things. I would have wanted to have a greater impact on the people that I love and the world at large. And so I came today to say and ask you the question, how do you want to live? Do you want to stay in the box and just do the ordinary? Or do you want to step out of the box in your world and what you do and have a greater impact on the world in which we live? You see, I think we want to be limitless. We want to take the limits off of God and say, Lord, I trust you enough that you allow me to be limitless, to go beyond what I ever thought I could and give it a try. So what stops us? And what actually determines how far we'll go and what we'll do? And we'll talk about a couple athletes in particular because those are the most visible that we'll be able to see, and some business owners that have done some amazing things. How did they get there? What's the difference between ordinary and extraordinary when it comes to people? Well, I think there are 5 core factors that are involved in either being ordinary or extraordinary and living limitlessly. The first one is how you think. How we think determines how far we'll go. So are we the kind of individuals that tend to focus on the negative, or do we focus on the positive? Do we look at the glass half empty, or do you look at the glass half full? Do you tend to just think through your problems and stay on the problem, or do you work towards the solution? See, when we begin to think negative, some things begin to happen. We begin to get paralyzed. When we focus on the negative, we don't always know how to solve it. But an interesting thing happens when we think about the positive. We tend to draw positive things to ourselves. We also draw positive people. So I have this saying that I tell my daughter all the time, and I tell people when I speak. No more stinking thinking. It's time to get past that, throw that out. Because successful people, they don't have stinking thinking. When you talk to them, it could be the worst situation, and they find the best in the worst. On the other hand, negative people, they find negative in even the good. The other factor that really goes into this number 2 is, what do you believe? Do you believe that all things are possible? Do you believe you can do the extraordinary? Or do you just believe you're ordinary and just walking through life just to get this thing over with? Or do you wake up in the morning and say, oh yeah, I got some problems, but I choose to focus on the positive. I choose to believe today could be the first day of my life that could be the greatest day of my life. In an instant, something could happen and change, and wow, things have happened great for me. It really comes down to how we think and what we believe. The next factor is the people we tend to hang out with when given a choice. Now, I understand there are times we don't have a choice. There are times where I'm around some people like, I cannot wait to get away from this group of people. They are totally negative. I call them the sky is falling Debbie, and frankly, life stinks Frank. And I look to get away from them at all times as quickly as I can. However, what about the friends that we choose? Who are they? How do they live their lives? Are they winners? Are they people are they always making it happen? Are they at the top of the board every time? Are they the best in the industry? Or are they just average? Because who we choose to hang out with is who we're becoming. People say the 5 top people that we choose to hang out with is an average of who we are currently or who we're becoming. Factor number 4. Our experiences. You see, we all have had good and bad experiences. Some people have had very devastating experiences, but it all comes down to the experiences that we hold on to that go into our long-term memory banks, the experiences that drive us and help us make our decisions. So we can either use the experiences that are full of pain and hurt and disappointment, which so many people do, and they walk around all day talking about what has happened to them. Does anybody but me have somebody they know, and every time you see them, they want to tell you all about everything that's going wrong in their life, and that's all they see? Or do you want to focus on what's really good, the things that are working, and keep focused on those things? Those experiences that make up who we are and that drive us. Because if we're driven by negative, we'll stay in the negative. If we're driven by positive, we'll always find a way to continue to climb up and do better and expect better. The last is our environment. Our environment is made up of the people, the places, and the things that are in our life. I call it managing my surroundings. You see, it is my responsibility to manage my surroundings. If I don't like the way my life is going, then I need to change my surroundings. I need to change the places I go, the people I hang around with, and the experiences that I'm having. And so we're responsible for that. So how we think, what we believe, the people we hang out with when we have a choice, our experiences and our environment, that makes up who we are and where we're going in life. You see, I made a decision a long time ago. I'm just a little girl from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm an African-American little girl from St. Louis, Missouri, where there are a lot of things that could be against me. But I made up my mind a long time ago that I live in a big world, and the God that I serve said that I can do all things, and I cannot let limitations hold me back. So I made a decision a long time ago, and it's funny because my parents laugh at me because I grew up very shy. And for my mother to think that I'm a motivational speaker who travels all over the world, she still looks at me when she's in the audience with this look on her face like, who is that? Whenever somebody would come, I would run and get behind her skirt and peek out. I was that kid. And so she's still looking at me. But something happened when I was going off to college that I decided I wanted to see the world. I wanted to experience people all over the world. I wanted to experience different kind of food. I wanted to experience different kind of people. I wanted to experience different kind of language. I wanted to experience different type of cultures. And as I began saying, that's who I wanted to be, guess what began to happen? I began becoming that. And as I got through college, it became clear I had a voice, I had a gift, and I wanted to use it. So what choice have you made in life? Have you decided to live limitlessly, or have you decided to live in a box? To have limits on who you are and what you will become and what you will experience. I just really believe you can do anything you set your mind to. Well, what holds us back? One of the greatest things that holds us back is our emotions. And the emotion that drives us mostly is fear. Fear is the core emotion that tends to drive everything. Whether we will love, whether we will hate, whether we'll be fearful and not do what we'd want to step out of the box and do. Some of you all set goals when January came around. You said, I'm going to accomplish this in 2015. So what's held you back? Have you accomplished it? Well, I got good news for you. It's only August. You still have almost the whole half a year to make it happen. So I think I was sent today to remind you to pull out that list that you made in January, take another look at it, and look at it through limitless eyes. Look at it through possibilities instead of negativity. Look at what it could be instead of what it can't be and what the potential barriers may be for it not to become. You see, we must learn to manage our emotions. And they call that, psychologists now call that our EQ, our emotional intelligence. And I would dare say that our emotional intelligence is probably more important than our IQ. Because I know very smart people who have found themselves unable to control their emotions. They're either somewhere in jail, they're somewhere homeless, they're somewhere without their family, because their emotions were something they could not manage. They did not have a very high EQ. So that rage, that anger, that disappointment, that sadness, and that depression took over a very intelligent person. And so we're responsible to manage our emotions. I began studying EQ about 2 years ago. And I was amazed as we began teaching youth about their EQ. Their test scores went up in school. Their relationships with their parents and friends exceeded what they had ever had. Because see, to manage your EQ, it means it's the ability to identify, to use, to understand, and manage your emotions in a positive way. When we're able to do that, now we're able to relieve stress, which builds up and causes problems. We're able to communicate effectively. We're able to empathize with people that maybe we don't agree with. And we're also able to overcome challenges and diffuse conflict. Because those are the things that drive us to a negative place. When we end up in a bad place there's no winning. There's only losing. We get out of control, rage comes in, and now we're in a bad place. But I just believe as people, we're capable of much more. Who thought a cat could jump that high and catch a frisbee? Who would have thunk it, as my daughter would say? Well, you see, I believe we're capable of doing more, being more, and achieving more. I believe just like Cy Young, who's a famous baseball player, he won more games than any baseball player in history. He won 511 games. The closest person to his record is Walter Johnson, 94 games. They got a long way to catch him. Or Cal Ripken, who I love, they call the Iron Man. Cal was amazing. He never missed a baseball game. He played 2,362 games without ever missing a game. And maybe you're not the star. Maybe you're a John Stockton who played for the Utah Jazz. John wasn't a Michael Jordan, but John broke records in providing assists. He was a 9-time leader in the league for leading in assists. So John found a way to be successful. Those guys found a way to break records and to look at them limitlessly. So whatever your records are, whatever's going on in the industry, or whatever your goals are for the year, they're breakable. They're obtainable. You can do it. But you got to think limitlessly. You got to believe in something bigger than yourself and bigger than maybe what the average person would believe. I know we're capable of it because the human mind, I've been studying the human mind. How do we go from ordinary to extraordinary? Well, between both ears, all of us walk around with one of the most incredible computers that have ever been created. God created something that man could not come close to. The human brain is capable of more than scientists have admitted they can ever measure. The human brain is where our mind, our personality, our memories, and our future hope exist. You see, the human brain orchestrates not only our purpose and our passion, but also our motion in our body and our emotions. The human brain is so amazing. There's enough energy within the human brain that it can actually light a light bulb. The human brain is so amazing that it is the fastest computer ever to be created. The human brain is so amazing that there are neurons that actually go to the brain, communicate to the brain at over 150 miles an hour, telling it to do different things. The human brain can process 500 words plus a minute. That's what they've been able to actually measure. So we walk around with this incredible computer between our two ears. And too many of us walk around with limitations. So I came today to challenge you to live limitlessly, to take off the limits from God and yourself and begin to look at life a new way. Whether you're 20, 30, 40, 60, or 80, it's an opportunity to live limitlessly. There's a saying that Thomas Jefferson said. He said, "Nothing can stop the man or woman with the right mental attitude from achieving his or her goals. Nothing on earth can help the man or woman with the wrong attitude." So it all starts by what we think. Unfortunately, too many of us have been taught to think small. If you think small, you'll achieve small. If you think big, you will accomplish big. Henry Ford of Ford Motor Company, he failed 5 times in business before he created Ford Motor Company. Bill Gates, a Harvard dropout, he failed at his first business too, before he went on to create one of the most global empire businesses, Microsoft, ever to be created. Oprah Winfrey, in her first television job, was told she was unfit for television. Unfit. R.H. Macy failed at 7 businesses before he created Macy's department stores. Michael Jordan was kicked off the high school basketball team because he was told he didn't have enough talent to play basketball. One of the greatest basketball players to ever live was kicked off his high school basketball team. Michael said, "I've missed more than 6,000 shots, actually 9,000 shots. I've lost more than 30 games, and 26 times they've given me the ball when it was crunch time, and I missed the final shot." In his quote, he said, "I failed over and over again in my life, and it's that has made me successful." You see, I can relate to that because 12 years ago, I started a business in my living room. I borrowed money from my family, and I completely maxed out my credit cards. I started a staffing company, and God spoke to me and said, "Eyes have not seen nor ears have heard what I have for you." I began the company, and literally within 5 years, it went from my living room to over 17 offices across the United States to a $250 million company. We were based in Los Angeles, and I was the largest woman-owned company in the city of Los Angeles and one of the largest minority-owned companies in the United States. I was going from the White House to the state houses all across the country receiving awards. Next thing I knew, I received a lawsuit in the mail from who I thought was my partner, which was the largest staffing company in the world, a $17 billion company, who decided to sue me and say that I was mismanaging the company and that I had stolen $1 million from my own company and given it to the church. Well, I entered into a phase of my life that was very difficult. It was through those 7 years of litigation, a David and Goliath story, that I discovered who I really am. I discovered how to live limitlessly, that it does not matter what happens to you. What matters is how you handle it. What matters is what you focus on, and what matters is you knowing who you are in life. Well, I lost the company because the lawsuit just continued, and although I kept winning in court, they kept filing different petitions. One morning I woke up and God said, "Walk away. Walk away." I'm like, "Do what?" Like, "I don't think I'm hearing you right, Father. Walk away." I walked away and shut down 17 offices. I laid off 6,000 temporary employees, and I began the second phase of my life. So I sat there and said, "Lord, what's next? What do you have for me next?" I wrote my first book called 10 Spiritual Principles of Successful People. And the new journey began. Because you see, I know that we created, where am I at here? To live out loud. I know that living out loud means to have a voice, that no matter what happens to you, you still have a voice and there's still a destiny and a purpose for you. So I began walking along this journey because I know I was created to soar. I know you were created to soar. Because what it takes to soar is what I call the spirit of excellence. You cannot have limitations and say, I'm only going to do this or I'm only going to do that. You set your mind at higher heights. You think like an eagle instead of a chicken. There's a huge difference between an eagle and a chicken. Now, there's nothing wrong with chicken. I like chicken. But when it comes to life and succeeding, I want to be an eagle. I want to soar to high heights, to see destinations that a chicken will never see. And to do that, there's something we must do. We must focus. You must focus in on what you want. There's a quote by an unknown author that says, when you focus on what you want, everything else falls away. You see, when you focus, and what we focus on is what you will see. And what you will see is what you'll react to. That reaction will cause a chain reaction. Positive things will begin to happen. People say to me, how did you start a $250 million company? It started with an action. It started with a thought process of, I want to be one of the greatest staffing companies in the world. Now my goal is to be one of the greatest speakers in the world, to travel around the world and be one of God's secret weapons, to not only travel and speak in the Christian community, but in the corporate community and take a new message to that community. So I must focus in on my thoughts, what I believe, the people I hang around, my experiences. I must pull from the positive and my environment. I must surround myself around positive people. You must focus in on your thoughts, the people you hang around, what you believe, your experiences, and your environment. Are they producing what you need in life? So it comes down to, what do you expect? What do you expect? Please watch a short video that focuses on what we expect.
What do you expect to get from life? What do you expect to get from your business? What do you expect to get from your relationships? What is your ideal day? What is it that you expect from this experience, this trip, this journey that you're involved in? People that have a strong sense of self-approval, they have high expectations for themselves and from life and from others. See, a lot of people don't expect much from life. So they don't shoot for much. They're not preparing for much. A lot of people are just showing up in life. A lot of people just get up in the morning and they go through the day, they go to the job just to pull a check down, watching the clock coming in. So you want to be a different kind of person as you forward your life. You want to get something out of this. If you're going to do it, it's worth your time, your energy. You've got some expectations from this.
You have to stay focused. Floyd, you have to stay focused. Floyd, you have to stay focused.
Always win, but don't be afraid of making decisions. You can't be paralyzed by fear or failure, or you would never push yourself. You keep pushing because you believe in yourself and in your vision. and you know that it is the right thing to do, success will come. So don't be afraid to fail.
Listen to me. Talk less and grind more.
So what do you expect? I expect you to stretch out. I don't know if you'll be able to do any of these poses. But these guys really are stretching beyond what they thought was possible, I see here. Leverage yourself. Leverage what's great about you. Expect more and do more. Think, feel, and act. Don't just think about it. Don't just feel it. Too many people stop at step 1 or step 2. Whether you're a pastor, whether you're in the travel business, or whether you're a servant leader, we must do more, especially the Christian community. We must find a way to have a greater impact. We must find a way to live limitless lives. Say that fast. Limitless lives. We must expect more and do more. We must touch more people. We must change the world in whatever circle you're in. So what do I expect? I expect you to choose better choices. Control our emotions. Choose better people to associate with, and always think positive. Take the limits off of God and take the limits off of yourself. I believe it says, the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Thank you so much for your time today.